In this video, I'm going to show you a home security system that never needed a battery, never needed Wi-Fi, never sent you a bill, and was so reliable that people trusted it to guard everything from their farmhouse to literal warehouses full of whiskey. It worked in total darkness. It worked in a storm. It could not be hacked, jammed, unplugged, or talked out of doing its job, and it ran on nothing but feed and water. Then we quietly got rid of it and started paying monthly subscriptions for something that does the same thing worse. Starting with, alright, picture this. It's the middle of the night, somewhere on a rural homestead 100+ years ago. A stranger creeps toward the edge of the property, careful, quiet, staying low, doing everything right to avoid being heard. And then out of the dark, an explosion of noise. Honking, screaming, wings beating the air. A racket so loud and so sudden, it carries across the entire farm and into every bedroom in the house. Lamps come on. A door opens. And whoever was sneaking up on that house is already running, because the one thing a burglar cannot survive is being noticed. And he has just been announced to the entire household by something he never even saw coming. That alarm wasn't a machine. It wasn't a bell on a tripwire. It wasn't a dog. It was a flock of geese. And before you laugh, understand this geese were one of the most effective intruder alarms human beings have ever used, trusted for literally thousands of years, right up into the modern era, in places where the stakes were deadly serious. We're not talking about a quaint farm pet. We're talking about a deliberate, proven security system with feathers. And if you're sitting there with a video doorbell that needs charging, a camera that goes down when the internet hiccups, and an alarm company charging you every single month for the privilege, I want you to sit with the fact that a bird did the core job better for free for centuries. So how did this actually work? Why were geese so good at it? And why on earth did we abandon something that effective? Let's get into it. To understand the goose as a security system, you have to go back further than almost any other home protection idea, because this one is ancient. People figured out a very long time ago that certain animals react to intrusion with noise, and that noise, not muscle, not teeth, is often the single most valuable thing a guard can provide. The most famous example is carved right into history. In ancient Rome, the story goes that a sacred flock of geese kept at a temple raised the alarm during a night attack on the city, alerting the defenders when even the dogs had stayed silent. Whether you take the legend literally or not, the reason it survived is that everybody who kept geese already knew the truth behind it. These birds do not miss things, and they do not stay quiet. From there, it just kept going. Across Europe, across Asia, across rural America, geese were a standard fixture on the small farm not only for eggs and meat and feathers, but for the simple fact that they were a built-in warning network. A homestead with a flock had a perimeter alarm running every hour of every night at no extra cost. It was so normal nobody even thought of it as a security system. It was just part of how a sensible household protected itself. And here's the part most people have no idea about this. It wasn't just an old-timey farm thing that died out with a horse and buggy. Geese were used as serious security well into the modern industrial age. Distilleries used flocks to guard warehouses full of aging spirits. Military and police facilities in various countries have used geese to patrol grounds and sound the alarm. Even in recent decades, when you'd think cameras had taken over completely, organizations have gone back to geese precisely because the birds do something the electronics struggle with. This is not a forgotten relic. It's a proven system we mostly walked away from, not because it failed, but for reasons that have nothing to do with how well it worked. Let me break this down, because when people hear guard goose, they picture a cartoon, and they completely miss how genuinely well designed this living alarm actually is. It isn't luck. Geese are almost custom built for the job, and it comes down to a few specific traits stacking on top of each other. First, the senses. Geese have excellent eyesight, better than ours in important ways, and a wide field of view that lets them catch movement from almost any direction. They notice change. A shape that wasn't there before, a sound that doesn't belong, a shift in the dark at the edge of the yard. They are constantly scanning, and they are very, very hard to sneak up on. Second, the volume. This is the whole point. When a goose decides something is wrong, it does not investigate quietly. It erupts. The honking of an alarmed goose is shockingly loud. It carries a long way, and it is relentless. The bird doesn't sound off once and settle down. It keeps going, and the rest of the flock joins in. One startled goose becomes a wall of noise in seconds. That noise is the product. A burglar's entire job depends on not being noticed, and a flock of geese makes being unnoticed completely impossible. Third, the territorial instinct. Geese are naturally protective of their space and their flock, and they do not back down easily. They will plant themselves, raise their wings to look enormous, hiss, and advance on something many times their size. They are genuinely confrontational. An intruder doesn't just get announced, he gets actively challenged by an angry, loud, surprisingly aggressive animal that has no interest in being reasonable. Fourth, the alertness schedule. Geese rest, but they are easily roused, and they react to disturbance through the night. They don't sleep so deeply that a quiet approach goes unnoticed. Combine all four sharp senses, enormous volume, territorial aggression, and round-the-clock alertness, and you have a detection and alarm system that runs continuously, powered by feed, requiring no wiring, no signal, and no human attention at all. The flock simply does its thing, every night, automatically. Here's the thing about the guard flock. Like every old protective system, it existed because there was a real problem that demanded a real answer. And for most of history, the core problem of home protection wasn't stopping a determined attacker with brute force. It was simply knowing that someone was there, knowing in time to do something about it. Think about what night actually meant before electricity. Total darkness. No floodlights, no street lamps, no glowing screen in the next room. A person could cross your property under cover of that darkness, and you would have no idea, no way to see them, and if you were asleep, no way to hear a careful, quiet approach. The intruder owned the night. That was his single biggest advantage, and it was enormous. The guard goose erased that advantage completely. It didn't matter that it was pitch black, because the geese weren't relying on your eyes, they were relying on theirs and their ears, and they were awake when you weren't. The moment something was wrong, the darkness that had been protecting the intruder turned into a stage, and the silence that had been hiding him turned into an uproar. You went from defenseless and asleep to wide awake and warned in a single instant by an alarm that no thief could disable because he never even knew it was there until it went off. Okay, so if this living alarm was free to run, impossible to hack, effective in the dark, and proven over literally thousands of years, why did it vanish from normal life? Why don't we all keep a couple of guard geese instead of paying an alarm company? Honestly, a few reasons, and none of them are because the geese stopped working. Reason 1. We stopped living on the land. The guard goose is a system for a property with a yard, a perimeter, and a household that's already keeping animals. As people moved off farms and into towns, into row houses, into apartments, and tight suburban lots, the whole context that made a flock practical disappeared. You can't keep geese in a third-floor walk-up. The system didn't fail the way we live, just changed out from under it, and the bird had nowhere to stand. Reason 2. Geese are demanding in ways a gadget isn't. They need food, water, space, and care every single day, all year, forever. They make a mess. They're loud even when there's no intruder. They'll sound off at the mailman, the neighbor's cat, or a gust of wind. And here's the awkward truth. That aggression that makes them great guards also makes them a genuine nuisance and even a hazard. A territorial goose will go after guests, kids, and the delivery driver with the same enthusiasm it shows a burglar. For most modern households, that's simply more than they want to manage. Reason 3. The security industry gave us something that felt like an upgrade and slotted neatly into modern life. An electronic alarm doesn't bite the mailman. It doesn't need feeding. It doesn't honk at 3 a.m. because a raccoon walked by. You buy it, you install it, you forget it, and a company stands behind it with monitoring and a monthly plan. It fit the way we live and the way we like to buy things. Clean, hands-off, professional, and packaged. The goose was messy, alive, and demanding. Convenience won, the same way it always wins. Not because the new thing was better at the core job, but because it was easier to live with and easier to sell. Let's just be honest about what replaced the goose. The modern home alarm cameras, sensors, a monitored system, a video doorbell is genuinely clever technology, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But look closely at the trade, and it's not nearly as one-sided as the marketing suggests. Start with the dependencies. Your modern system needs power. Cut the power, and a lot of setups are compromised. It needs connectivity, Wi-Fi, or a cell signal, and when the internet drops or the signal is jammed, the smart features can go with it. It needs batteries that die, software that needs updating, accounts that get hacked, and a company whose servers have to stay online for the monitoring to mean anything. Every one of those is a point of failure that simply did not exist for a flock of birds. The goose could not be unplugged, could not be jammed, and did not depend on a corporation 3 states away keeping its data center running. Then there's the monthly fee, the Goose 8 feed. Your alarm eats a subscription every month, indefinitely, and if you stop paying, the monitoring stops with it. You don't own your security so much as rent it, and for all that cost and complexity, The core function is the same one the goose performed for free: notice the intruder and raise the alarm. We've wrapped that simple job in electronics, dependencies, and recurring charges, and somewhere in there it became normal to pay forever for something a barnyard bird did on its own. The modern system has real advantages. It works in a city apartment, it doesn't attack your friends, it can show you who's at the door from across the world. But in raw reliability, independence, and cost over time, it's not the clean win we assume it is. Here's the part that actually makes this click. A security system, stripped down to its essence, only has to do two things well: detect and alert. Everything else is decoration. And it turns out a goose is almost perfectly engineered for exactly those two functions, not by a designer, but by evolution. Detection first. A prey animal that lives in the open survives by being impossible to ambush. Millions of years of natural selection tune the goose's senses and its nervous system to catch the faintest sign of a predator approaching: the small movement, the wrong sound, the change in the pattern of the dark. That's not a hobby for the bird. It's life and death, and so it's relentless, and it's always on. Now the alert. In the wild, a goose's loud alarm call exists to warn the entire flock instantly and to startle and confront a threat. That is, functionally, an alarm siren that evolution spent ages refining for maximum range, maximum urgency, and maximum effect on an approaching predator. When a burglar trips that response, he's not setting off a buzzer, he's triggering an instinct honed over countless generations specifically to make a sneaking predator's life impossible. The territorial aggression is the same story: an instinct to defend the flock's ground, repurposed perfectly to defend yours. The old farmers didn't have a word for any of this. They didn't need one. They'd simply noticed that nothing got past the geese. And they were right. The bird was a detect and alert machine that nature had already perfected long before anyone thought to put it to work guarding a house. So here's the question you've been waiting for. Could you actually use this today? Should you? The honest answer is, for some people, genuinely yes, and they're already doing it. Guard geese, and guard animals in general, are having a quiet resurgence among people with land, small farms, homesteads, and rural properties where the old context still exists. For the right property, the case is strong. On a rural lot, a small flock of geese is a perimeter alarm that costs almost nothing to run, works in a blackout, can't be hacked, and doubles as eggs, weed control, and company. People who keep them will tell you flatly that nothing approaches the property without the geese announcing it, and that's exactly the point. In a setting where an electronic system depends on a long power run and a shaky rural internet connection, a living alarm that needs neither starts looking less like a novelty and more like good sense. The limitations are just as real though, and they're the same ones that pushed geese out in the first place. They need daily care, every day, no vacations without a plan. They're loud and territorial, so they're a poor fit anywhere with close neighbors, frequent visitors, or kids running around. And they are absolutely not an apartment or tight suburb solution. So, it's not for everyone, but for a homestead or a rural property owner who wants a layer of protection that's independent of the grid and the cloud, the guard goose still does the one thing it has always done, and does it for the price of feed. Alright, let's make this practical, because even if you're never going to keep a flock of geese, the principle behind them is something you can absolutely use. First, take the real lesson. The most valuable thing a security system does is detect and alert early, reliably, and independently of the grid. So look hard at your own setup and ask what happens when the power and the internet go out. If the honest answer is, my security goes with them, you have the exact weakness the goose never had. Add a layer that doesn't depend on either a battery-backed alarm, a cellular fallback, something that keeps working when the lights don't. Second, if you've got the space and the lifestyle for it, a guard animal is a legitimate option, not a joke. A flock of geese on a rural property, or for many people a dog, gives you a detection and alarm layer that runs on its own instincts and never needs a subscription. Just go in clear-eyed about the daily care and the downsides, especially with neighbors and visitors nearby. Third, lean into the part of the goose's power that's free to everyone: noise as a deterrent. The whole reason geese work is that intruders cannot tolerate being noticed. Anything that reliably makes noise when someone approaches a loud alarm, a motion-triggered sound, even gravel underfoot, attacks the intruder's single greatest need, which is to stay unnoticed. You don't need feathers to use that principle. You just need to make sure that approaching your home quietly is impossible. And finally, build in independence on purpose. The goose's real genius was that it owed nothing to any company, any wire, or any signal. When you choose your protection, value the parts that keep working on their own, the things that don't stop the day you miss a payment or the day the network goes down. That mindset more than any single gadget, is the thing worth taking from the bird's example. Here's what actually gets me about all of this. We've ended up in a place where home protection means a stack of devices that need power, need internet, need updates, need accounts, and need a monthly payment to a company that holds your footage on a server somewhere. And all of that is to accomplish the same basic thing a barnyard bird did for free: notice the intruder, and make enough noise that, being noticed, becomes the thief's problem. It's worth understanding what the bird actually had: total independence, total reliability, zero recurring cost, and a job it performed flawlessly for thousands of years. We didn't replace the goose because it failed. We replaced it because we changed, and because someone figured out how to sell us the same protection on a monthly plan. The geese that woke a sleeping household the instant a stranger touched the edge of the property were proof that the simplest systems are often the hardest to beat. Not bad for a bird.